Hi, everyone. You're watching Conversationality, a bi-weekly show brought to you by Optionality, your community exploring the now of work. Happy Thursday, everybody. Jory Jardins here from Optionality, and with me is Elisa Camahort Page.
Hi, everyone. And I'm super excited to introduce, we have a guest today for Conversationality, Dr. Sophia Yen, who is the co-founder and chief medical officer of Pandia Health. I've known Sophia for, I don't know, a lot of years now. And in fact, years ago now, we discovered accidentally that her husband was my husband's boss for a while. We at a holiday party, we both sort of gravitated to the same couple. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. So that was a very, very funny coincidence. But anyway, Sophia has long been a champion of women role models through her work in the nonprofit space, but also a champion of women's health through her work as the co-founder and now chief medical officer of Pandia Health. And when Jory and I were talking about our theme for Optionality this month, because it's helpful to sort of try to coordinate content around a theme. We decided to focus this month on one of our top level taxonomy terms, which is energy management. And what is energy management? Well, for us, we didn't really want to talk about work-life balance, and we didn't really want to talk about self-care. These were a lot of terms that get thrown around, particularly the women's internet, and women's content. And what we felt is that what we had encountered in our lives is that our level of energy and how it maps to the level of what we need to get done can really shift, and there can be gaps. And sometimes they're about working stuff, but sometimes they're about lifing stuff. And it's really this mapping of your energy to where it needs to be versus how much you have to give that I have found most critical to figure out as I go on in my life and my career. And I will say for me personally, one of the biggest moments that I needed to really figure this out was when I was going through a pretty rough perimenopause in my 50s, early 50s. And I was exhausted. By 3 p.m, I'd be like, I'm just going to sit on the couch. I don't even know if I can get up. And it took a long time. I saw my primary care. I saw my gynecologist. It took a long time to get everybody talking to each other and figuring out why I was having issues. And I think menopause and perimenopause are much bigger conversation points now than they used to be. But I still think we could talk about it more. And Sophia is kind of focused on women's health from puberty to menopause. And so, Sophia, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to try and really elevate this conversation into being something we all can feel comfortable talking about, because it's just reality and we just need to be super frank about it. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this being your area of focus and what made you instead of being in practice, which I'm sure you could still do if you wanted to do, just be in your own practice. What made you decide to start a company and go the entrepreneurial route? I'm always fascinated by people like lawyers and doctors and other people who could stay in their professional lane, but decide to take this little adventurous entrepreneurial route instead.
So about 11 years ago, I was giving a talk to a bunch of physicians. Why don't women take their birth control? And one of the top reasons why women don't take their birth control is they didn't have time to run to the silly pharmacy every single month from age 15 to 52 every single month. And if you miss it, then it's a hair on fire moment. Either you're risking getting pregnant or you're having bleeding when you don't want to bleed. And so my friend and I were like, we could solve this. We will just ship women birth control and keep shipping until they tell us to stop. And then we ran ads, free birth control delivery. And then 60% of the people that responded did not have a prescription. And I'm like, do you not know you need a prescription? And luckily I'm a physician. And so I could write the prescription. And thus the beginning of Pandia Health was born. If you have a prescription insurance, we ship it to your door. You don't pay anything thanks to the Affordable Care Act, no copay, no deductible for any FDA approved birth control. And then if you need a prescription, it's just $35 once a year to use our expert physicians with unlimited follow follow-up questions about birth control, but only birth control because you only paid $35 for a year. And then I hit menopause. And all my friends are like, menopause. And I'm like, yes, I will find the best treatment for me because I need to know for me. And then I will share it with all of you. And in building our 100% physician team, we picked up 2 of the nation's OG menopause practitioners, both OB-GYNs with 20 plus years experience. And I was like, you are leading our team. You are teaching all our doctors. And if any of our doctors have questions, we will consult you. And so that's why at Pandia Health, we can see a patient in 1 business day for birth control. And for menopause, 3 to 5, in case our doctors want to consult these OG OB-GYNs if they have any questions or anything like that. And started the company because we needed a women-founded, women-led, doctor-founded, doctor-led company. We are the only women-founded, women-led, the only doctor-founded, doctor-led birth control, menopause, telemedicine, pharmacy under one roof. And the difference that makes of having a doctor at the center is very few other founders have taken the oath, do no harm. And no offense to the MBAs out there, but sometimes the MBAs are like, just give them the cheapest pill with the best margins. But they don't realize that there are 40 different birth control pills out there. And if you give a woman a random pill, she might have some side effects. And then she's like, oh, all pills suck. I'm out of here. But we've really been about educating women that there are 40 different pills, that having a physician that knows how to pick the right pill. I came up with Dr. Yen's algorithm, and we've taught all of our physicians. And with that, 93% of our patients are happy with the first birth control pill that we prescribe.
Wow.
That's, go ahead, Jory.
Could I ask you a question about that? So by the way, I know Sophia from many years ago as well, because when you were starting your entrepreneurial journey, we met, and I was working with an organization called the Women's Startup Lab. And that's how we met. And I was like, this is so brilliant. Why didn't someone think of this sooner? But I was also in a very different life stage, right? So I remember thinking, this is brilliant, birth control, birth control, birth control. A lot has happened since then. I mean, not just menopause, but there's been, states and legislation and birth control, abortion, the Dodd Act. I mean, there's so many things that you could go on and on and on about. How has this impacted your journey as an entrepreneur? I mean, there's so much to navigate now, and it's so much more of a cultural challenge, not just administrative at this point.
Yes. No, my husband's joke is that everything that's bad for the world is good for my company. So COVID, bad for the world, but great for everybody understanding asynchronous telemedicine. And so we just want to put it out there that asynchronous telemedicine, we think, is the new standard for sensitive stuff, because you don't want to do a synchronous visit with someone you just met. And they're like, how many sexual partners have you had? Is it dry down there? Does it hurt when you have relations? How often do you have relations? Whereas they've shown in research that if I just ask on a questionnaire and you're like, so many partners, very painful. It's not as bad as seeing someone face to face, or you don't feel any judgment. You don't hear any judgment in their voice, stuff like that. And then we've also learned many people, unfortunately, still require synchronous visits to get reimbursed. But with asynchronous, our patients have unlimited time with the doctor, back and forth, as much as you need and want on our HIPAA secure platform, versus other platforms have become kind of pill mills, or like, conveyor belt, have to see a patient every 15 minutes. But we allow you as much time as you and the doctor need to go back and forth until you're comfortable with your treatment plan. And so we're very excited about asynchronous. And then with the politics, when Roe v. Wade was overturned with Dobbs, unfortunately, we saw a huge flood of women realizing, oh my goodness, I need to get my birth control automated. I need to get my birth control delivered. And that is the sole reason we initially started Pandia Health, was to make sure no one runs out of birth control on our watch. What is scary under this administration is, one, we never thought the Supreme Court would overturn Roe v. Wade. Number two, we never thought they'd come after birth control. And as they come after birth control, that is what is really scary. And for me, as a physician, the whole point is if you're anti-abortion, then you should be 100% behind birth control. Because when we prevent unplanned pregnancy, we prevent abortions. The number one cause of abortions is unplanned pregnancy. And there's 70% of pregnancies in young people that are unplanned. So I believe that if everyone used birth control, had some emergency contraception, or I also strongly encourage doubling up condoms plus birth control, so you doubled up, then we could prevent 70% of unplanned pregnancies.
Wow. Let me ask you, for regular doctors, I was struck by how little my two doctors really seemed to be able to handle when things started to change for me.
Yeah.
Even my OBGYN, who was younger than me and therefore had not personally experienced anything yet. She has now. Like, I've seen the same woman for many years. So I've heard, I don't remember anymore, about how much time is spent in medical school, especially even as an OBGYN, on talking about this shift to perimenopause, where I think a lot of the problems start and get very extreme, and into menopause. I mean, how much does medical school focus on that?
So medical school, I think, I know what all I was taught 30 years ago. This is how you treat menopause. 30 years ago, you put your hand on the woman's shoulder and you go, this will pass, AKA hashtag suck it up. And my hashtag is hashtag stop sucking it up. If you have bad, evil periods, if you have any symptoms of perimenopause or menopause, please see a doctor. Please see someone who knows what they're doing. And so the key there is to know they just did a survey of OB-GYN residencies today and asked them, how many of you all teach in menopause? And 31% teach something, but it could be an hour, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be it's 31%. But flip side, 69% of OB-GYNs graduating today have no menopause curriculum training. And we don't even know what that stat is for internal medicine, family practice. Most of us that have popped out our babies don't see OB-GYN anymore. I see my internal medicine doctor and she can do my pap smears. I don't need to see the gynecologist. Gynecologists want you to see them, but they are not primary care. They don't know how to handle diabetes. They don't know how to handle hypertension. They're not up to date on the latest vaccines. They may, but they are not primary care. If you ask any physician, OB-GYNs are surgeons first and foremost. They like procedures. They like money. They like delivering children. And they aren't primary care. They want you to think they're primary care. They want you to go to them for your annual, but your annual should be done with internal medicine, family medicine. You really only need gyne if you're having babies or if you have like fibroids or,
You're
other.
blowing my mind right now. I go, my OB-GYN is the person I go to every year for my annual.
No.
I don't see my primary care hardly ever.
Yes, you should see your primary care every year to make sure you're getting your cholesterol checked, to get your vaccines up to date, the primary care diabetes screening. The OB-GYN, no, you go to the specialist for their specialty, and internal medicine family practice is your everything. Your specialty is gynecology. Your specialty is menopause. Your specialty is birth control. Though anybody should be able to do birth control, but no one has the algorithm that I've developed for choosing the best birth control out there. And then on the menopause side, there's only 3,000 plus Menopause Society certified practitioners in all of North America. And we have 7 of them out of our group of 22 physicians at Pandia Health. And although you don't have to be Menopause Society certified, at least you've studied the position statements and taken an exam to prove that you are up to date on the latest and greatest and evidence-based care. Anybody that's pushing pellets, anybody that's pushing testosterone outside of hypoactive sexual desire disorder is doing it off-label. And so as a telemedicine company, we can only treat what the FDA has approved. And unfortunately, the FDA has only approved hormone therapy for hot flashes, night sweats, genitourinary symptoms of menopause, which is like painful sex, or as I like to call it, sandpaper vagina, or recurrent urinary tract infections. And that, the example I want to give is a family member of mine started getting urinary tract infections at age 70. And usually you see that in a 20-year-old who doesn't pee after sex. But I was like, But no, that wasn't the issue. What it is unfortunately, when you take away estrogen, the vagina dries up and then the urethra is above it and that dries up too. So that increases your risk of urinary tract infections. And so some people say if you're actually the urogynecologist, so not a urologist who usually takes care of erectile dysfunction and penises, but a urogynecologist who specializes in the urinary system of those of us born with uteri and vaginas, say that anybody 53 and above should just start throwing down some vaginal estrogen to prevent recurrent urinary tract infections. And then the last indication, my joke is, as minorities, we never get a leg up on anything, but as minorities, the majority of us are lactose intolerant. So we have low calcium intake. And so we are instantly at risk for osteoporosis. So anybody who's at risk for osteoporosis as a family history of osteoporosis, is a small framed person that is at risk for osteoporosis, instantly qualifies for HRT.
Really?
Just you invoke, I'm at risk for osteoporosis, and then immediately you get HRT, because they show you as soon as you hit menopause, your bone density goes down immediately, a huge percentage in the first 5 years. And the statistics have shown that if we were to get everybody on HRT, we could decrease heart attack, cardiovascular disease by 60% and bone fractures by 50%.
It seems, first of all, it's so rare. It's refreshing, despite the fact that I cringed when you did make that comment about the sandpaper. But it's so refreshing to be able to have such an open conversation. What I find really still perplexing to me, and as someone who HRT, love it, I'm on it, I've had the conversations, but even so, it still feels a bit like a dark art when you're having a conversation. It's like, well, tell me more about that. Oh, okay, well, we don't really recommend that. Well, okay, why? Why can't you tell me? And you're just kind of demystifying this as we go. And I think that is an amazing, thank you for that. I still question why we can't have very logical conversations like this more commonly. Like why? And I think it has to do with just the industry, and you're just feeling comfortable enough, having worked in this industry, to know where those guardrails are and you can talk to them, right? Versus I think others in the industry just go like, we won't go there. We won't even talk about it. So that, thank you. I want to bring this just into a more practical level too, because we're talking about energy management. And this was something that for me was one of the first tells, right? Like something's a little different, because I think I took energy for granted. It's there. And all of a sudden it wasn't. And for me, I've had to make choices about how I work, because there are just certain realities around how my energy works. So I've had to, not do certain things that were energy sucks. If anything, you get very good at knowing how to, better maximize, optimize, and do the things that you can do with the energy you have. Do you have in your service? I mean, I know that you're talking about prescriptions, but do you often talk to people in your practice about energy levels? And do you make recommendations that aren't necessarily prescription based, but because of those symptoms for their energy and energy management?
Yeah, I think the key is, our goal is to bring expert birth control and menopause care wherever you have internet and a mailbox. And the thing is, our first level is just to get HRT out to everyone who needs or wants it. And then after that, refer back to your primary care physician or to an in-person Menopause Society certified practitioner. So if you go to menopause.org, that is the educational nonprofit that educates anybody who wants to be educated, both lay people and physicians and providers, but more so on the provider side. And they're the ones that certify us. So for our online service, we're just about getting everybody HRT. But in version 2, we may have more kind of discussions and other things like that. But a lot of people notice once you get on HRT, things get much better. And the other, because it helps with the difficult sleeping. Progesterone helps with sleeping. And then if you're having hot flashes or night sweats, you may not even know you're having night sweats, and that's affecting your sleep. And taking away the estrogen and progesterone that menopause does affects your sleep. And then you go on the HRT and the sleep is better, right? And then your energy is a little better. And there's 70 different symptoms of perimenopause, menopause. And so maybe just to set for your listeners and people watching us today, menopause technically is the first day of your final period. And for anyone going through it and has yet to go through it, it's an irritating thing because you get a period and then you're like, okay, I got to wait 12 months. And because only 12 months after that last period can we say you're in menopause. So 3 months into this, you get another period and you're like, oh, I got to wait another 12 months. And then 6 months, you're like, oh, I got to wait another 12 months. Or you can do what I did, which was hashtag periods optional. I went on the birth control pill patch ring and didn't have any bleeds at all. How did I know I was in menopause? Well, all of a sudden, I picked one of the best doctors I possibly could in the Bay Area based on her education and residency, et cetera. And a 52-year-old woman presents with waist disappears because when you take away estrogen, the fat redistributes and sticks to your waist. But as an obesity expert is even more scary, the fat then likes to stick to your viscera, which is around your heart and around your liver. And I'm like, blah. And so if that's what happens when you take estrogen away, then you should put estrogen back so that it doesn't go on your heart and your liver. And then my triglycerides shot up. And as I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm an obesity expert. So I go to see my doctor and I tell her my waist has disappeared, my triglycerides. I didn't tell her triglycerides shot up, but we draw my blood and it goes up. And she's like, oh, well, that's just old age. And you need to exercise more and diet better, right? And I'm like, I'm an obesity expert. People wait 6 months to see me. I haven't changed my diet or activity, anything from last year. And sure, we all hear about bad things happening when you get old. But like, I didn't just go to New York or Hawaii and eat a ton of food. Like, there's no explanation for my waist just disappearing all of a sudden. And I was just like, no. But so then doing a menopause company and learning about the effects of taking away estrogen, I was like, oh, let's switch to HRT. And so the estrogen in the birth control pill is different from HRT. And the estrogen in HRT helped me get my waist back. I didn't change anything in my diet or exercise, but it was simply the difference in that estrogen replacement. I got my waist back because if you know me, 99% of my wardrobe is skirts. And I was like, do I have to toss all my skirts that I've accumulated over the past 20 years that I love? And I was like, this is horrifying. Will I have to do metformin or a touch of Wegovy? You know, like luckily just the HRT and the waist came back. And then the triglycerides, they put me on a statin. I didn't bother to check off the statin. It doesn't hurt to be on statin. So I'm on a statin. TMI.
I am sure that anyone watching this, though, is going to be taking notes just for.
Yeah.
I will.
Can you explain like why is it also just the erratic? Because it was even before I hit menopause, this energy problem I had. I think what we finally figured out is that like, okay, TMI some more, but I was having like these super frequent, super long, and super heavy periods.
Oh, yes.
And I had no when we finally connected the blood testing for my primary and the gynecological symptoms, I had no B12. I wasn't anemic, but I had no ferritin, which is the reserves of iron. So, I mean, that kind of explained it. Yes. I've always wondered, do you have any theories about like why? What is the purpose of perimenopause? And it's so different for so many women. There's so many different things can be attributed to it. What is the evolutionary purpose of putting women through this? Like every woman on the planet is going to go through this at some point.
Yes.
And if you have another reason, like you have to have a hysterectomy or something, you might go through it in your 30s, based on if you have to do that. Like, what's the point?
So as I tell everyone is that we were put on this earth to reproduce, hang out a little bit to help the next generation, and then we're supposed to leave. And so we were all supposed to go at 50 or maybe even 45. Anything above 45 is gravy and what science has brought to us. So we have artificially extended our lives. And so the body is like, I've done all the eggs I'm going to do, and I'm shutting the whole factory down. Thank you for your service. Bye-bye. And so my thing is, perimenopause is this process of running out of gas. And you can either run out of gas naturally and be like, put, which is flooding. And I personally had 2 friends, not I heard about, and maybe even 3, that told me about their flooding nightmares. So if you don't know about flooding, you haven't had periods, your periods are getting weird, but because that lining is all sorts of whack, it could bleed a little bit at a time, or it could bleed a lot. And when it bleeds a lot, that is the flooding phenomenon. And I had a friend, I met her after all of this. If I'd met her during this, I would have taken care of her. But I met her after all. This is her telling me her story back. And she's like, I couldn't go to any friend's house for a month because I was afraid I would destroy their furniture. If I sat down on their couch, if I sat down at their kitchen cushion.
I wouldn't drive to San Francisco because I'm like, I could get caught in traffic. It could take an hour and a half. Like I'm at certain times I'd be like, I'm not going to that thing I said I was going to go to because I don't want to deal with it, you know?
Yes. So I want to educate everybody on this because a lot of people are getting educated about menopause and perimenopause, but a lot of people are like, I want the bioidentical hormones, which for you all to know that the prescription FDA approved estrogens out there are available in bioidentical. The patch, even the pill, even the gel and the spray estrogen, all of that is bioidentical. You do not need to go to compounding. And anyone who's doing compounding is just trying to make more money off you. And the Menopause Society doesn't suggest it because compounding isn't tested. We don't know. Probably is fine. But in general, just go with the FDA approved one. But for perimenopause, your hormones are like this. Up and down, up and down, up and down. If I add estrogen and your estrogen's already up, is that a good thing? No. And I can't change it up every single day. So the best way, the gold standard of treating menopause is to take it over with the birth control pill patch ring. So we take it over and we just make it smooth. And then at like 52, 53, we're just like, are you in menopause yet? And if you are, then you can just switch over to HRT. And that's a lot smoother than... So another person that I just listened to her lecture, brilliant nurse practitioner, she was like, you can do the roller coaster or you can do the smooth carousel. Or if you want, some people just don't want to do birth control pill patch ring. Part of it is because they had a bad experience with the pill. And again, we're really good at picking the best pill with no side effects at Pandia Health. You could ride the waves, but it's going to be a rocky road and you're going to have to be able to deal with that. Whereas I'm a control freak and I want to have no chance of bleeding on my drive to New York or San Francisco or wherever I'm going. I want absolute control over my period. And you can do that with the birth control pill patch ring. And then just check when you get there and switch to HRT.
And are you saying that controlling that helps restore some of the depleted energy? And like also I mean, Jory, we've talked about like brain fog, right? And is it all about smoothing out those hormones to try and push back on some of those very common symptoms?
Smoothing out the hormones is also supplementing you with estrogen and progesterone. But as I did allude to, the estrogen is different. So there are 2 new birth control pills that have the more bioidentical estrogens, but they're very expensive and insurance often won't cover them, unfortunately. Or your doctor is going to have to really yell at that insurance company to get them to cover it. So as I told you, and I'm learning myself, and we're learning as we go, that the effects of the bioidentical estrogen are obviously different than the ethinyl estradiol. But you need that level until you hit menopause, 1, to prevent unplanned pregnancy, but 2, to take over the system that's crazy. It's by taking it over that you smooth it out. And only once you've had that final period, then we can add back estrogen and progesterone.
Right. Sophia, my final question. And by the way, speaking of brain fog, I did refer to the Dobbs decision as the Dodd decision. So there you go. So just
Or
like
Christopher Dodd.
showcasing that on this. I know you are not an expert in legislation, but it does impact you. And when I was in, I want to say like my 20s or 30s, I was, like working in an office and I had read of this absolute horror show case of a woman who was going through menopause and bled so much she bled at work, and she was let go for indecent exposure because she really wanted that to happen.
Oh my
Anyway,
God.
and I remember
Like it was
thinking,
under her
oh my
control.
God. Oh, I thought that was like the worst thing that I could even imagine. What kinds of protections? Maybe it's through medicine, but are we getting smarter about that in terms of policy and protection for women, and an acknowledgement that this is not an indecent exposure? It's a biological inevitability for women.
Yeah, no, the progress that I'm seeing on one hand is that, you know, California has mandated in all of its public institutions, K through 12, that menstrual products be available for free. And I've always said wherever there's free toilet paper, there should be free menstrual products. And if you don't, then it's just sexist, and it's also not respecting the womb. So you may be able to see here, I have a uterus necklace, and I love my feminist dad. He's like, we all came from the womb. No one escapes the womb. We owe the womb for everything. The womb is the source of life. And I was like, damn right. None of you all would exist without us womb bearers. And so because we bear that burden of bleeding and the potential, then you better cover our menstrual products. Otherwise, I'm going to take your toilet paper and make one. But anyway, it's just about dignity and equality and caring for people that create the life on this earth. So on that hand, we see that. And I also thought it's mean when you get off an airplane in a foreign country and the US, and they ask you to throw down money for menstrual products. Like, I haven't even had a chance to get out and exchange my money. How am I supposed to come up with a coin to pay for this menstrual products? And even then the products there are crap. But so on that hand, there are countries that are looking at menopause leave policies. There are countries looking at menstrual leave policies. But again, I say hashtag stop sucking it up. If you are the number one cause of missed work and school under the age of 25 for somebody with a uterus is bad, evil periods. If you have bad, evil periods, or you know someone who has bad, evil periods, please see a doctor. We have medications to help you function so you can go to work, you can go to school. And so I think that it's great they have these menstrual leave policies, but know that we have medications to help you, and hopefully enough that you could work and function, but absolutely should have that for those that can't or whatever. And then I think same kind of thing for menopause. There's been a plus minus. The feminists, you don't want us to be labeled, you know, oh gosh, she's a liability. She's going to cost our company more because she's going to take leave for menopause and stuff like that. But we also want that option if it's needed, right? And I think with the brain fog, they've actually shown that like 1 out of 5 women have considered leaving their job because of the brain fog, or because of the hot flashes, or just the fear or the reality of badness happening to you at work. And, you know, we haven't even gotten to the society where a woman can be like, I'm going to the bathroom with my tampon. You got to hide it in your sleeve, right? You got to hold it, you know, carefully, surreptitiously. Like our joke, I saw a comedian, I loved it. I think it was Ali Wong or Schumer, was like, we should just take the tampon and swing it around, be like, I'm bleeding right now, and you all owe me because I make babies, you know. But no, we're like, let's hide this. Let's hide this. I mean, you know, and that's the same thing with menopause. Like, we need bosses. We need women bosses. We need more of them so that people can be like, I have menopause, and excuse me, I'm having a brain fog right now. And for anybody who has gone through pregnancy, menopause brain is worse than pregnancy brain, in my opinion. It's so frustrating when you're 50 plus and you're top of your game and you know everything, but then you can't find this person's name, or you can't find this word, and you'll get it like 20, 30 minutes later, but that's not so useful in the moment that you need it. So, and we need better drugs. We need better treatment. So I think with time, but we need investment. And unfortunately, the current administration has cut, NIH has cut, CDC has cut everything that contributes to science. And as a doctor and scientist, I just want to say that I'm appalled, and that we are wasting money because we have invested in these scientists and we have told them to stop their research, and we're going to lose all of that we've paid for to today. And a lot of people are leaving this country. If you're not going to fund me here to do my research, to save lives, to make women's lives better for menopause or whatever research that person's doing, they're going to go elsewhere because they can't just stop doing their research because the government went psycho. So please vote for people that believe in funding science and research. That's what made this country strong. And we're losing all that right now. It's just horrifying.
You know, you were reminding me earlier that when I first got into tech, which by now is 20, almost 30 years ago, a woman gave me a hint as I was interviewing at pretty male-dominated tech companies. Always use the restroom before you leave the company and see if they provide free menstrual products in the women's restroom.
Oh.
And if they don't, don't work there. They don't respect or care about women. They're not really being proactive. And I thought that was a very helpful little tip. But I think the same could be said about, when you decide where you're going to go do your postdoc, where you're going to go do your research, you're going to look at where's the place that is indicating that they are committed to the research and the funding and the figuring this shit out. So, Sophia, thank you so much. I feel like I just got like my hair. I'm like that. I will now date myself because I am postmenopausal. That Maxell commercial with the guy in the chair being blown back by the music in that case. But I feel like I learned it had never occurred to me that I would go have my annual, get a pap smear with my primary care. I am literally blown away by this idea. And anyway, but thank you so much. I think that the more we can just demystify it and talk about it and know that these are symptoms that are not, they're not about your core value as a person in the workplace, your core intelligence, your core capabilities, your core strength, that they can be understood, be managed, and be dealt with, is really important. And that we should talk about it because it is the reality for half the people on the planet, basically. So tell everybody where they can find you, Pandia, you and Pandia, and how to best support your work.
Thank you. Pandia Health, not Panda Health. Pan is every and Dia is day. So we want to be with you every day from age 13 until your last breath. So if you ask any Menopause Society certified practitioner who has a uterus, they're like, you're going to have to take this estrogen patch off my dead body because you don't have to come off it. So if anyone's trying to tell you to come off, you don't have to come off. And it's Pandia Health or Pandia Menopause on all the social platforms. So we're on TikTok, Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, generally Pandia Health. We just added Pandia Menopause. So that's more like TikTok and Insta where we're there. And then if you want to follow me, I'm Dr. Sophia Yen. And then I just want to put out 3 books that I love. One is The New Menopause by Dr. Marie Claire Haver. Actually, 4 books. 2 is Estrogen Matters. If your doctor is saying, oh, estrogen causes breast cancer from HRT, the answer is Estrogen Matters, written by a cancer specialist, and he breaks down the flaws in the Women's Health Initiative and why estrogen in HRT is not linked to more breast cancer. It's actually linked to less breast cancer and less death from breast cancer. And then the 3rd book, just because dementia is a huge thing for my family and on my mind, is Menopause Brain by Lisa Mosconi, a great book on how estrogen affects the brain. And then a new book by Tamsin Fatal, which is How to Menopause. I really like her. I haven't read the whole book yet, but I got to the part where she realizes that estrogen and progesterone beats any supplement out there. So if anybody is trying to push a supplement out there and you don't have a contraindication to estrogen and progesterone, ask them, does this supplement beat estrogen and progesterone? And the answer by research is no. So why not get the best for you? Why try to hack close when you got good stuff?
All right. Awesome. Thank you. And thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah.